10 youngsters from Florence take refuge from a plague in a large house. Instead of sharing their stories, they indulge in obscene exchanges. The movie begins with a scene where a man is meticulously painting the interior of a church. He narrates how he has been painting for an extended period but has yet to receive any form of payment for his work. Frustrated by his financial struggles, he decides to confront the church father to demand his compensation. However, upon reaching the church father's quarters, he is shocked to discover that the father has tragically passed away due to a devastating illness known as the plague. This news leaves him heartbroken and deeply disappointed, as he realizes he will never receive his long-overdue payment. His eyes fall upon the church father's robe. A sudden idea strikes him, and he decides to assume the role of the father. The story then shifts to a young man named Lorenzo, who is fleeing through the city in sheer panic. He is being pursued by Gerbino, a ruthless man with a vendetta against him. Despite the relentless chase, Lorenzo manages to narrowly evade capture. Frustrated by Lorenzo's escape, Gerbino instructs his men to find and apprehend him at any cost. Lorenzo, aware of the danger he is in, seeks refuge among his friends, who provide him with a horse and urge him to leave the city immediately. Following their advice, Lorenzo mounts the horse and rides away, determined to escape Gerbino's clutches. Meanwhile, we are introduced to Pampinia, a young woman mourning the recent loss of her parents, who succumbed to the plague. While she is grieving, Gerbino approaches her, expressing sympathy for her loss. He inquires about her plans for the future, and Pampinia reveals that the King of Russia is expected to arrive soon and that she intends to marry him. However, Gerbino seizes the opportunity to remind Pampinia that her late father had accumulated a significant debt to him. Now, with her father gone, Gerbino claims ownership of all her family's property. He gives her an ultimatum: if she wishes to retain her family home, she must marry him. As Lorenzo continues his escape, he encounters a man who is both mute and deaf. The man explains that he used to work as a gardener nearby but has since left the position. Lorenzo, desperate to avoid detection, devises a clever plan. He decides to pretend to be mute and deaf, hoping to secure the gardener's job and evade Gerbino's men. Climbing a tree to hide, Lorenzo momentarily avoids capture, but the branch he is perched on snaps, causing him to fall and lose consciousness. A group of nuns discovers him and, believing him to be mute and deaf, takes him to their church. Coincidentally, this church happens to be seeking a gardener. The nuns decide to hire Lorenzo for the position, unaware of his true identity. As Lorenzo begins working at the church, he quickly becomes the subject of attention from the nuns. One day, while he is bathing, 2 of the nuns join him, revealing their less than pious intentions. It becomes evident that they wanted a mute and deaf gardener so they could indulge in inappropriate behavior without fear of exposure. Meanwhile, Pampinia gathers with her friends and their boyfriends at the church. She announces that she has another home in the city where she plans to meet the King of Russia and invites everyone to join her there. However, their gathering is interrupted by Gerbino, prompting Pampinia to lie, claiming that they were merely praying. Wanting to avoid Gerbino until the king arrives, Pampinia decides to stay at the church temporarily, unaware that Lorenzo is working there as the gardener. Her friends depart to visit her other home. At the church, Pampinia notices Lorenzo for the first time. The nuns introduce him as the mute and deaf gardener, but Pampinia quickly becomes suspicious of their behavior toward him. Over time, she realizes she is growing fond of Lorenzo, though she struggles with her feelings. Jealousy begins to stir within her as she observes the nuns' interactions with him. At the palace, the King of Russia, Zazinski, arrives. Gerbino seizes the opportunity to deceive the king, claiming that Pampinia has agreed to marry him. Furious and disheartened, Zazinski leaves the palace. However, a passerby informs him that Pampinia is waiting for him at another house in the city. Encouraged by this news, Zazinski sets out to find her. Back at the church, Pampinia confronts the nuns about their behavior toward Lorenzo, accusing them of sin. The nuns dismiss her concerns, accusing her of jealousy. Frustrated and unable to contain her emotions, Pampinia pours hot water on Lorenzo's head, a clear sign of her growing feelings for him. As Zazinski travels to meet Pampinia, Gerbino and his guards ambush him, killing all of his companions. Despite the attack, Zazinski narrowly escapes and continues his journey. At the church, Pampinia overhears Lorenzo singing a song. To her astonishment, she realizes he is not mute but has been pretending all along. Intrigued, she decides to take matters into her own hands. One evening, she brings food to Lorenzo, covering her face to conceal her identity. She blindfolds him, kisses him passionately, and leaves. Lorenzo is captivated by the mystery and becomes determined to find the woman who kissed him. When it is time for Pampinia to leave the church, she informs the head nun that Lorenzo is not actually mute or deaf. Feeling betrayed, the head nun dismisses Lorenzo from his position. As he sits outside the church, dejected, Pampinia passes by. Lorenzo pleads with her to take him along and she agrees. Meanwhile, Zazinski encounters a woman by a lake who falsely claims to be Pampinia. Unaware of her deception, Zazinski believes her and begins to develop feelings for her. Lorenzo and Pampinia arrive at her home. During a heartfelt conversation, Lorenzo confesses his love for the woman who blindfolded him. Pampinia, hiding her true identity, teases him by suggesting he kiss someone else to forget her. Secretly, she hopes he will recognize her as the woman from the church. Their moment is interrupted by Gerbino, who arrives with his guards. Lorenzo bravely confronts him, but Gerbino proves to be a formidable opponent. Pampinia intervenes, declaring she will marry Gerbino if he spares Lorenzo's life. Gerbino agrees but insists on an immediate wedding. Gerbino sends his men to fetch a priest, unknowingly summoning the fake father introduced earlier. Pampinia discreetly bribes the father to delay the ceremony, and he complies. Meanwhile, Gerbino's guards lead Lorenzo into the woods, intending to kill him. However, Lorenzo outsmarts them, killing the guards instead. On his way back, he encounters Zazinski, and the two men join forces to confront Gerbino. As the wedding begins, the father employs various tactics to stall the ceremony. Frustrated by the delays, Gerbino threatens him with a sword, forcing him to proceed. Just as the ceremony is about to conclude, Zazinski arrives, brandishing a gun. Gerbino flees, and Lorenzo and Zazinski team up to eliminate his guards. In the climactic showdown, Zazinski duels Gerbino, who eventually loses his weapon. Lorenzo steps in to confront Gerbino, and during their fight, Gerbino falls into a well and dies. With Gerbino gone, Pampinia confesses her love for Lorenzo. Zazinski, realizing she is not the woman from the lake, reunites with Melissa, who is revealed to be Pampinia's friend. Overjoyed, Zazinski and Melissa embrace their newfound love. Finally, Pampinia proposes to Lorenzo. Initially hesitant, Lorenzo admits he still longs to find the woman who blindfolded him. Pampinia kisses him, and Lorenzo instantly recognizes her as the same woman. Filled with joy, he accepts her proposal, and the story concludes with their union.